That's where I wanted to die. I did everything I could, shouting at myself to do it.
Just do it, you coward! Why can't you do it?
I'm Steve. 3 months ago, I held a gun to my forehead to finally end it all. From the outside, you'd think I was happy, had my life together, and was healthy and fit. I look like I have a good job, have a happy family, and eat healthy. From the outside, I look like I've got everything dialed in. But it's just a shell, a facade. Once you peek behind the ever-widening cracks, you'll find the real me. Now in my 40s, who spent nearly every waking moment since I was 13 hating myself and wanting to die. In my mind, I've failed at everything. Starting from the childhood abuse, where I was beaten with a variety of household objects, and I was told I was shit, and parents who told me I wasn't theirs and I should have killed myself. And now my marriage of over 20 years is ending. I spent my life running, but everything is caught up. I can't run anymore. The end of my marriage was my breaking point, the final failure on the burning pyre of all my other failures. Our separation was the culmination of years of growing distance and tension for both of us. And the disagreements between us had fewer and fewer resolutions, and over time I started to shut down. I'd also been laid off from an insanely stressful job the week before. And this time I couldn't speak for a week, and when I could finally discuss it with her, it escalated to where it all boiled over, and I broke. I had a mental breakdown. I honestly only remember some of what I said, but I know I was out of control. Screaming things that could never be taken back, and that I regret saying. I left the house, and over 2 nights, I held the gun to my forehead with the safety off and finger on the trigger. I grieved over the final acknowledgement that we no longer loved each other, but were hurting the other, and that I had played a large part in the unhappiness she had also experienced for years. I believed that the world and the people around me would be better off if I was dead. I drove to the mountains I had fallen in love with while rock climbing, and the scenery was the main reason we had moved here a year earlier. That's where I wanted to die. But I couldn't pull the trigger. I did everything I could, shouting at myself to do it, calling myself a coward, a pussy, and a waste of space. And I begged God to let me go, and to let me end myself, or to please erase my very existence. But there was silence. I felt an unending emptiness on the other side of that gun, and a sense of fear. There was an afterlife where I didn't necessarily go to hell, but there would be an eternity of heartbreaking regret if I didn't choose to stay to fulfill a purpose that had yet been unmet. There was no thunderbolt from heaven or a parting of the clouds. Instead, just a glimmer of a realization of how self-hatred, bitterness, and regrets had corroded my life. And I saw the faces of people I had hurt in the past. After sitting in the darkness, I drove back down from the mountain, convicted to reach out to those I had hurt, start over, and to make my life worth living. Somehow, I noticed the pattern, so I made a choice. I don't know where this quote comes from, but that's what I started doing. I reached out to the people I had hurt, in some cases years ago, and asked for their forgiveness. Some did not, which I deserved. Some were silent, and others did, which I did not deserve. I gave the gun to a friend, so I couldn't access it, and I reached out for help. I got counseling and therapy. I told a few friends what happened, and stopped saying I was fine when I was dying on the inside. What I will never forget What I will never forget is how they rallied around me, held me up, and showed me love when I thought I deserved none. Many days were lonely, others agony, One day, the only thing keeping me going was a smile from a stranger at their grocery store to confirm I really existed as a human. Or just walking in the snow, remembering how much joy it gave me when I was a child. But over the following weeks, a few good hours, and then a few good days crept in. Instead of wishing to be magically transported out of my misery, I started laying the smallest of stones to make a staircase leading me out of my hole. You might be wondering why I'm sharing this. I've seen many suicide stories where it's too late. It's the parents and loved ones grieving over someone who had taken their life. I was suicidal, but I'm still here, and if you're in pain, I hope this helps you knowing people live through this and it gets better. You're hurting. You're not bad or unredeemable. People say it gets better. I didn't believe it either, but my life is different now. Sharing what's happened to me is part of my life's purpose now. When I was young, I thought I wanted to be a writer or a storyteller. I always thought very visually, clearly seeing a picture of those stories, until that desire was hammered out of me by my family, because I would end up poor and living under a bridge. It also wasn't prestigious enough to brag about to their circle of friends. To help me process and put a shape to everything that's happened, I've started journaling regularly. Progress is slow at first. The words come haltingly, and I have to restart many times to get a coherent thought out, like refining raw ore straight from the earth until the impurities are removed. But slowly it improves, and the clarity increases. Over the years, I had thoughts and ideas to take up writing again, but the ideas and possibilities that came seemed so unattainable. But now, I'm claiming them, even if they sound melodramatic or crazy. Time is ticking, and I'm not getting any younger. And the words and images that have come to me are about what's next. And a lot of this is inspired by a book that helped me during this time, called Burn the Boats by Matt Higgins, which basically tells you to go all in and eliminate any opportunities to retreat, to go for your goals. And these were the words that I heard. You've landed on the shores of a new land with just the clothes on your back. The only way is forward. There is no turning back. Burn the boats. There's nothing left for you from whence you came. Sit and watch the flames. Grieve what you left behind, but then go forward. Up into the hills and out of the shadow of the mountains, until you can see all that's ahead of you, and you finally feel the sun on your face. You have one more fight left in you, to fulfill the promise of who you hoped you would be, to make it to the end without regrets and on your terms, to be someone that mattered. You can choose to be free from the chains that have held you back. You're still young and vibrant, and pursue the dreams you thought were too big, too unreachable. They are yours, and life will make a way if you fight for it. As I finished writing this video, I also started to hear two words that repeated in my head like a mantra. With the consistency of a beating heart, I hear the words, embrace life, embrace life, embrace life, over and over again. This next chapter of my life is just beginning, and I have to make the most of it. I'm Steve. 3 months ago, I held a gun to my forehead to finally end it all. But I didn't. I'm finding out what's next. Come join me.